I was sick and tired of being told that as a business owner and a father and a family man, that I was non-essential. To me, I'm the most essential person in my life for my family because I'm the one that's putting food on the table.
Yeah.
So that was part of why I wanted to get out of Colorado when we moved down here 4 years ago. Ron DeSantis down here had done a speech where he's like, everybody that works and does a job in Florida is essential. And that is who we're going to be and what we are. And so Florida's open, like we're just doing our thing. So we made the decision, boom, all right, let's go.
Florida's not just where we live, it's where we build legacies. Welcome to the Florida Forge podcast. This show is designed to celebrate the entrepreneurs shaping our state's future. Leaders who care about more than just profit. Why? Because the businesses we build today will define the Florida our children inherit tomorrow. I'm Gavin Elliott, a Florida business owner for over 25 years, and together we'll uncover the grit, values, and vision that forge what's next in the great state of Florida. Mr. Jordan Goodfellow, thank you very much for coming on the Florida Forge podcast. I'm super excited to get to talk to you. I mean, one of the, your area of business is in the audio-visual realm. I mean, I grew up as a kid in the 80s and 90s where like the amount your car would rattle was a sign of how important you were in this world. So I want to start just by saying thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Happy to be here, man. Not a problem.
Brilliant. So let's get into it, man. Talk to us a little bit about, you have the company GigRent, is that correct?
Yeah, GigRent or GigRents, depending on who you talk to. One of my, let's call it pet peeves at moments is for a while people would always say, let's call it GigRents. And I'm like, it's not GigRents. There's no S. It's GigRent. and then I just succumbed to it. And I was like, you know what? I went out and I bought GigRents.com and GigRent.com. So I have both.
Yeah.
So that they both point to the same place. And then when everyone says called GigRents, it's just identical. So GigRent, all one word. And it's a company I started back in the official start date was 2018.
Okay.
In reality, it was actually 3 years prior to that, that an old nonprofit ministry group that owed me a bunch of money traded me a couple of projectors for the debt that they'd owed me for like 8 months. And my wife was like, sell them, let's get our money back. Cause it was about 10 years ago, it was about 30 grand.
Oh, wow.
And I was just a freelancer doing, let's see. So this was the end of 2014. So I was just wrapping up kind of the first part of my career, which was 15 years of doing rock shows and rock tours, and working my way into the corporate AV industry. And she said, she's like, let's get the money. And then I looked at it and said, well, there's an opportunity here. And I began to realize that I was actually pretty good at this whole gear rental thing. And so ultimately GigRent, rent being the key word in there, is, we're specifically focused on audiovisual rentals and equipment rentals, not doing the shows, which I spent, 20 plus years of my career doing shows, being a technical director, project manager,
Wow.
all of those things. And then, and now it's focused on the equipment, the quality, the level of detail that we can deliver to our customers around AV, audio and video specifically, some lighting. I would go back to your comment about how much your car rattles. I would say here in Florida, that is still very much a badge of honor in many places. So, but I have spent more than my fair share of time in big, loud rooms, getting my head knocked around by subs and everything else. And so I'm more of a, I don't want to say a quiet guy, but I am more of the guy that I'm great if we're just like cool as a cucumber, nice and chill. I've done plenty of running around, traveling the world, doing big rock shows and so on.
That's awesome, man. And speaking about loud noises, and I turned 50 July 5th, so I'm entering my second half of a century, and
Awesome.
Thank you, brother. My hearing's not as good as it used to be. So like, and my mother is 85 years old and she whispers when she talks. So we'll be at dinner together and my mother will be whispering and my old ass will be leaning in, trying to like catch what. So I look like the one who has like the breakdown and everything and my mom looks fine. But the reason why I raise this is like, so going through all of these concerts now, is your hearing still good or like, have you had it?
Oh, dude, my hearing's impeccable. Now,
Wow.
my wife would tell you differently. But there's a difference between hearing and listening, and we know that there's a difference. I was incredibly strict about protecting my hearing when it came to being on shows, because one of the things I teach my boys is like, you only get one set of ears, you get one set of eyes. They can't give you a new hearing. They can't give you new eardrums. They can't give you, when you lose the hearing, man, it's gone. It's done.
Yeah.
You have to protect your hearing. So for me, it was regularly using, and I'm like half a hypocrite here, because there are moments where like I mowed the lawn and I wasn't wearing wasn't wearing hearing protection and stuff, and I should have been. But by and large, especially when I'm walking out front, like if you're walking on the front row, in front of all the front fills, during a show, I mean, and it comes at you from one side. So if you're walking sideways here, it's always either in your left ear or your right ear, depending on what side you're coming at it from. So normally I would walk like this. So I'd cover up the ear that was facing whatever that speaker is, or those speakers in general, so that at least the sound that's coming this way, that pressure wasn't getting there. And then the other side I could still hear. So if I got my radio here on my, normally I'd wear my radio on my left side. So I'd be, covering this ear, so then I could still hear radio. Or they'll also give you if you're part of like the show crew portion of the gig, you'll get actually very similar to yours, only they're noise canceling, and they're big tight headphones that stick, and they look huge on your ears. Like you'll see videos of, security guys at concerts, for example, wearing them, and they're these big, huge protective earphones, so that you are protecting your hearing. And even a good, one of my coach, who I work with personally and I've been working with for a long time, I recommended a set of West Tone earplugs that filter sound, and you can put selectable dB decibel limiters inside of it, and you can pick anywhere from 10 dB down to 30. And he took that when he went to Electric Daisy Carnival like a year ago.
Wow.
And he told me, he's like, Jordan, it changed my life. I could actually enjoy the music. It didn't decrease the feel of it, but it decreased the decibel level into my ear, so I could hear it, I could feel it, and I actually enjoyed it, versus just feeling like you're overwhelmed by the noise, by the crashing in of all of the sound pressure that's coming into your ears. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of people face nowadays, is that all the noise that's coming in, and learning how to put those filters in metaphorically speaking as well as physically, to be able to filter out a lot of the noise that comes all around us on a regular basis, which then causes confusion, causes weariness, it causes tiredness, it makes us not be able to make good decisions. But that's a much longer discussion, I think.
No, and that's brilliant. Like, that is really useful information. I have a very close friend of mine, a new close friend, who they've gone to EDC that you mentioned like a few years in a row. And I'm like, I was born in England. I'm licensed there, so I travel internationally a lot. So I'm like, listen, I have to take you to the festivals in Europe. You have to go to Tomorrowland in the French Alps, or like, something like this. So I'm going to replay this before I go to the festival. So the limited amount of hearing's there. So thank you, man. I appreciate that. But
I can't tell you enough. Protect your hearing, even now when you're 50, because you know what? Like I want to live to be 120 years old. So I want every part of my body to live, and that the 120 is a specific number for a reason. But when I look at every part of my body, I've never broken a bone.
Wow.
I've never had a major injury of any kind, even having been in car accidents and things like that. I've been incredibly fortunate. But if I can take care of my eyes, take care of my ears, my mouth, my body, my body will last me a long time. You just have to take care of it. And a lot of times, many people who want to, as we want to live in comfort these days, will do things that cause their body to deteriorate faster. So I stand more than I sit. I'm constantly engaged in things that are going to help my body stay strong. So,
Well, good. And I do have to clarify one point for the record. This very good friend is a girlfriend, and they might get upset if they listen to this podcast. And I'm like a very good friend. So for the record, it's my girlfriend. But okay, you walked me into this question. You said the 120 years is a number for a specific reason. So
Yep.
what's the reason? Why is 120 important?
because that's what the Bible says.
Oh.
It says that the days of man will be numbered at 120 years. So I'm like, all right, that's the number we're looking to.
Cool, man. So you were a man of faith then?
I am. Absolutely. I was born, I grew up, my parents are still attending the same church they attended when I was born
so
44
cool.
years ago. If anything, my dad and my mom, specifically my dad, have been the greatest example of faithful servants of the church and of Christ, specifically Christ first, then the church. But to me, of anybody I've ever met, and that is what they live for. I mean, they literally have probably given more money to the church than they spend themselves. Like, I don't even know the numbers. They've
Wow.
never told me, they never talked to me, but when I look at, what they've done over the last 44 years, they were going to the same church. The pastor who was, my pastor of that church for the first 25 years of that church. Now, I left at 18, and obviously they were trying to get me to come back, and I was done. I was up in Rochester, New York, which is not the place that I wanted to live. So I was out the door as soon as I turned 18. I went to an internship in Texas and never looked back. But I also knew that it wasn't what I was supposed to do to go back. So
what brought? So when you say 18, did you just leave the house or leave the faith? And if you did, because honestly, I was in Catholic school my whole life, protected, single mom, and like I show up at University of Florida, it's like holy cow, like there is a lot of temptation here. And like we had a meeting with my male church group yesterday, and we were talking about what is suffering, and suffering can arise from the failure to touch on temptation. So you mentioned you were in like rock concerts, and like were you confronted with temptation while you were at those shows? How did you deal with the temptation? Did you fall short? Did you come back strong? Like, I'm really curious about it, man, because I know I would have failed at that age, young age especially.
Well, so I was involved with a group called Acquire the Fire and Teen Mania. And so I went down to the internship. Funny enough, there's actually a documentary coming out on Amazon for season 2 called Shiny Happy People that is specifically revolving around more the Honor Academy group of the ministry, and I have a feeling it's going to be slanted to the negative, because here's the thing: there are people who wear their victimhood as a badge of honor, and they feel that somehow they were wronged, and that 20 years ago something happened that caused them to now be who they are today. And they've never reconciled with the fact that who they are today is strictly based on all of the decisions that they made, and it's no one else's fault.
100%, 100%, man.
Now, I went in 99, I went to Teen Mania. So I did not move away from the faith in any way.
Okay.
If anything, over time, it has caused my faith to grow stronger. And really truly understand who my Savior is and what God has done in my life. Now, answering your rock tour question, whether you're on tour or not, temptation is all around us. It doesn't matter where we are, whether that is, and most people, when they think of temptation, they think of sexual temptation. That's just where our mind goes. But the temptation to cheat, steal, the temptation to lie, the temptation to bear false witness. You look at the 10 Commandments. Obviously, you can be tempted in any one of those areas. The temptation to not recognize the Lord as your sole provider and who He is in your life. So throughout being on rock tours, yes, all of those temptations, including sexual temptation, did exist. Now, when I look back on the last 25 years of my life and having been, so 2000 is when I started touring. And I was with the Acquire the Fire group for about 7 years. So during that time frame, we were doing 25 to 30 shows a year. We were doing weekend conferences, seeing tens and tens of thousands of lives impacted for Christ, coming to know the Lord, and so on.
Amen.
the temptation was different there than it was doing like real, true rock and roll. And when I was out doing rock and roll, the 80s and 90s, you said you're a child of the 80s, sex, drugs, and rock and roll was the
Yeah,
thing.
man.
By the time you got into the 2000s, it was like drugs and rock, and so because all the rockers are old now.
Yeah.
So they're all like, so I spent 4 years with Linkin Park as an example.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so in that time, I realized like they were already parents. So this is 2010 to 2014. They're parents. They have kids, wives, significant others, and they would all come to the shows. So like Chester, his wife and kids would be at the show, and his kids are doing these big chalk drawings on the side of stage during while the show's going on. His daughter's like 5 years old or 4 years old. I don't remember how old she was, but she's drawing and all this stuff. And it was an incredible family atmosphere, but yet, they're out singing In the End, and they're singing, all of the songs that they did every single night. And it was so different than when they were younger, when they wrote all of their really most famous music, when they were single and, running around doing whatever they were doing, and likely probably a lot more wild than they were
Yeah.
in, the 2010s to 14. So in my experience, like the whole moniker of sex, drugs, and rock and roll doesn't exist anymore. It's actually incredible. It's an incredibly professional atmosphere where people like me, who were as a technician, wanted to do a good job and deliver a high quality product. Whereas in the 80s and 90s, it was like, let's go rock and roll. Yeah, man, let's do it. And everybody,
man.
You watch the old videos of Motley Crue or AC/DC or, like the true, like, Rolling Stones.
Ozzy Osbourne, bro. Ozzy Osbourne.
And the stories, and I've heard the stories, don't get me wrong. I've toured with all the guys that toured with those guys. I mean, we're talking like my production manager for Linkin Park was telling me about stuff he was doing when Marilyn Manson was touring back in the late 90s and the early 2000s. I mean, and dude, I've heard some stories, don't get me wrong. So they exist, like the stories. Axl Rose, the guitar tech for Brad on Linkin Park, was also the guitar tech for Axl Rose for a number of years, and he had a bunch of stories about like dealing with Axl and how everything went on out there, and it's just it was a whole thing. So let's say this: when I was out on tour, the temptation absolutely existed, but people also asked me about my faith, because I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs. I don't stay out late. I don't go to the clubs. I don't do so. After a while, like the monitor guy in Linkin Park would like, hey dude, like Jordan, help me understand. Like, you don't drink, you don't do, all this stuff. Like, what's going on? And I would start to talk to him. And in fact, at one point, it led to the fact that one of the guys out on tour called me after I had come off tour, or maybe 2013. I remember he basically called me and was like, hey dude, can you tell me a little bit more? Like, I used to be a Christian. I used to go to church, but I don't. Like, can you talk? Like, I'm having a hard time with my family. And I spent like an hour and a half on the phone with the guy, just talking to him, encouraging him. Where he ended up after that, I'm not sure. We kept in contact a little bit, but I know that what I did out there, while not perfect, was absolutely significantly more in the direction of helping people understand that I did walk by my faith. Have I worked through stuff that many men do, dealing around pornography and sexual temptation, and, having conversations I shouldn't have with the opposite sex and stuff like that? Absolutely. My wife and I have been through all of that. And it's not easy, and it's hard to go through, but we have gotten through all of that. This is 10, 15 years ago. And so now he has restored our relationship as a husband and wife, and everything that has gone on now is just been amazing for the last like 8 years, because we worked through all that. And we've been married. We'll be married 18 years this July 28th, this month. And God's been incredibly faithful to us through that whole process. And so it's absolutely possible to see the temptation and walk away from it, but the discipline, I'm working to the next level of discipline and self-control in my own life right now, like around sleeping more and around doing the things that I need to do to not get distracted, not get, if you pick up your phone when you're laying in bed, you're going to start scrolling. And it's like, while it may not be bad, but is it the best thing for you? Is it what your body needs? Is it what your health needs? And I get caught up scrolling and watching stuff more often than not when I should be sleeping. And I'm like, crap, now I'm only getting 6 hours of sleep instead of 7, and wasting time, because time is the most valuable asset we have. It's the bank account that we don't know how much is in it. We'll never know. And it could have a lot, it could have very little. So what are we doing with what we're spending of our time right now? And it's been hitting me really hard over the last 6 months. Like, what am I doing with that? How am I using it? Because it's going away. I'm 44. And if I'm going to 120, or if I only make it to 80, I only have a certain amount of time left. That bank account only has so much left, and we don't know when it's done. We can't predict. I could get hit by a car on my way home tonight. I don't say that in a prophetic sense by any means, but I could. So have I done everything possible to ensure that what is going to come out of my life is going to be something that honors the Lord, and something that people can remember as something that points to him and what he has done through us and for us over the course of our lives.
No, and that's beautiful, man. And thank you for preaching on this point, because, and it just coincidentally at my meeting yesterday, the church group, it's the Knights of Columbus, we were discussing, well, I actually was engaged to this girl. She converted to the Catholic faith for me, then she left me. So, I mean, that's not great news, obviously. But but I came to the realization that my purpose in her life was not to be her husband. God's purpose for me in her life was bring her to the faith, which I gladly accept, and I gladly go through the suffering to bring another soul. But the thing that you mentioned that was so important was that Christ didn't yell at people. No one's going to come to Christ by you yelling at them. But like I said in my meeting yesterday, it's by your example, because people see how you are, and they begin to, and perhaps are unhappy for a variety of reasons, but are like, well, how's this guy doing this? Like, in your case, he doesn't drink, he doesn't do drugs, this is rock and roll, the sex isn't part of it anymore. But like, how, and that,
well,
go on.
Caveat, not entirely not part of it. Trust me. I from afar, I can say I know of things that happened while I was there that I did not participate in any way, but I'm aware of them. So let's just say that, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. Please feel free to, man. I mean, this is a conversation, but you are the guest. People want to find out about you. Like, I'm just here wearing a baseball jersey and a baseball cap, So please, and the time thing is so true as well. I'm turning 50, and I'm an attorney. Every week, literally, my whole profession is like they have Fast and Furious. I live life 6 minutes at a time, because we build 1/10 increments. So time is so important. But I want to jump back in time, speaking of time a little bit, to like when you were a young man, 5, 6, before you were 10 years old, did you know that music, did you know that performance, did you know that technical skills in that realm, was that something that you were going to do, or did you have another vision?
I had no idea.
Oh, what?
I was a kid, man. I was like, we went from Rochester, New York. Our church was in Batavia, so it was 30 minutes away. So my entire childhood, we were at church 4 days a week, 5 days a week, depending on what was going on. My parents were heavily involved. I started playing drums in the 4th grade. And so I was playing drums, and I moved into playing the drum kit. And so by 7th grade, I was playing in the worship team at church.
Cool.
So I didn't touch technical equipment because there was really nobody else in the church that could play drums. So I was the guy. And so I was always playing drums all the time. And the only reason I ended up doing tech stuff was when I turned 18 and I went to the internship with Teen Mania. I went there to actually be a drummer in the band that was the touring band, because that's what I wanted to do. But they convinced me to do the internship on campus first, which meant I wasn't touring. I had to wait a year to get there. Well, there were so many drummers and so many artists and musicians that came in and that were part of the other bands that, I felt, I wasn't a great drummer, but I was okay. But there were guys who were better than me. So I wasn't elevated onto a worship team while I was there at first. So within the first couple months, I started looking around like, I have an engineering-ish mind, so I'm looking at what I want to do, and there was the sound booth, and I was like, I mean, those, I was kind of a nerd in high school. I wasn't the guy. I won't say I was an outsider. Like the whole nerd idea that you see in the movies doesn't actually exist or didn't exist when I was in high school. It was more just I wasn't popular because I wasn't drinking and I wasn't running around with a bunch of chicks, and I wasn't like that. Just wasn't me in high school. I was going to church. I was got to the end of high school. I was running track and cross country.
Me too.
And so all of that happened, and I was just a kid existing. Like I wanted to get through. I was a B+ student, mid to high 80s. I hated doing homework. I just wanted to go play in the woods and build forts and, work with my hands and do all those sorts of things. So I went to the internship and I started working in the sound booth, and actually so I met a guy named Matthew Serta in the sound booth like that the first time I walked up there, and he was sitting in front of an old compact computer, big CRT monitor. This is, 1999,
I remember.
like October.
Yeah.
And him, and then this other guy, Jonathan Pelkey, who was the sound guy at the time. I was like, hey, like, I don't remember exactly how we got into the conversation. I think I met him down in like the cafeteria. I was like, hey man, I'd really love to learn a little bit more about what you guys can do. And so he was like, hey, come on up. Love to have you come up. We're always looking for guys to join the tech team and so on. So I came up and Matt was there. And he got me introduced to Matt, and then they taught me how to run PowerPoint or worship words, because they would do worship words for all the services. And it just so happens that Matt actually works for me now. And I've known him ever since then. He hated my guts at first. He thought I would be pretentious. But it then turns out he was the best man in my wedding. I was the best man in his wedding. So I've actually known him for more than half my life now at this point. And so through all of that, though, that's where I joined the tech-related stuff. Then I moved on to the touring team. The next year started to learn audio more, learn more about how to do that stuff. I actually just had breakfast yesterday morning with the guy who taught me more about sound than anybody else that I've ever learned it from. A guy named Jeff Gallup. He's now 68, 69. He lives in Nashville. He's a former touring guy. He was touring during that sex, drugs, and rock and roll 80s, 90s, 2000s. Like that was his. So the stories that he tells are wild. But he taught me so much. And then that was really where I started to learn, okay, this is what I think I want to do and what I think I'm good at. Owning a business wasn't even in my lexicon at the time. It was just, hey, I love to work hard. Let's go. And let's just do hard work. I mean, dude, we were working Acquire the Fire. I was driving truck. I was production managing. I was running the events. I was working 80, 90 hours a week. Easy 80, 90 hours a week. And it was, it was hard, but it was so much fun. We had such a great time doing it. And that's where I developed my love for doing events, but also learning and picking up on how events work. How do you make an event excellent? What are the things that people respond to, watching the give and the take and all of those things? And so I really learned how to create not just an event, but an experience for people, and being able to coach people through that, but then also learned how to speak, how to talk, how to communicate effectively with the individuals that we were working with, the kids, and then as I grew through there. So it was a double-edged sword. I loved all of it. I love what we do now, and the transitions that we've made, where I've made my way out of really doing events and into the implementation of the equipment so that people can be more successful. They can create more events for their customers, give them the support that they need, because there are people that want to do events. I've done literally thousands. I can't even count them, how many events I've done in my lifetime. And so I've done more than my fair share, so I'm happy to let other people go out and do them now. And for me, be at home. I mean, I used to tour. So when I was touring, I was on the road 200 days a year, 250 days a year.
How do you, were you in a relationship while you're on the road all this frequently?
I was married. Oh, dude, I got married. So I was, the first 7 years of touring, I was single. I met my wife at Acquire the Fire. She was the production management assistant there. And so we started dating. We dated for 8 months, got married in July of 2007. In September of 2007, I left on tour with Enrique Iglesias for 2.5 months. And I went to South Africa. I went to Europe. And I was gone for literally 2.5 months. Our first Thanksgiving, I was in Moscow, Russia, or St. Petersburg. I was in St. Petersburg, Russia for my first married Thanksgiving. I sent her home to be with her family. So we were married, but when we got married, we didn't know. Like I didn't have a job plan. I didn't have anything. Like I had no vision for what was going to happen. We just moved to Nashville because I knew I could get work there in the AV rock and roll industry if I had to, because I'd already been offered jobs. So that was all I knew. Nobody taught me when you get married, like, hey, maybe you should look ahead a little bit. Like I had money in the bank. That was it.
Yeah.
Like literally, we were like, living on love at that time. And now we've figured it out, but it's taken us, it took us 15 years to get to this, kind of get here. And now 18 years, obviously. So that's the road. There's so much more to it. We just don't have time to go into all of it today.
No, and I appreciate that. And one of the things I want to ask you about, and I've obviously interviewed other people, and every one of them to the one, and they've been successful, varying degrees, but they have had a significant other behind them who has sort of been the backbone, the support. So what I want to ask you is, what kind of a role, support, love, everything like that has your wife played in your career and your advancement in it and your life?
I would not be who I am today and doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for my wife. Absolutely. I would likely have gone into the military. When I graduated high school, it was one of two choices. It was either go into the Army or go to the internship. It was one of those two things. And I chose the internship because I believed that was the right thing for me to do. If I had gone into the Army, I would probably have 3 kids with 3 women. I would probably have been a total screw up, or I would have stayed in the Army and I would have been a career soldier, because I am a very loyal, like just my mentality, my temperament with my employees, with the people I work with the people I work for. I am like sometimes, like to my own detriment, loyal to those individuals. And so now with my wife, she has been incredibly instrumental in encouraging, pushing, disagreeing with, like pushing back on me, not just saying yes, but saying, what are you thinking? Why are you doing that? What in the world were you thinking when you said that thing or did that thing or acted that way?
Wow.
However, what that is she's bringing accountability to the areas where I need to grow. And while I could be a douche and not listen and be prideful and egotistical, ultimately, anytime I've done that, it has led to a negative growth time in my own life. And so over the last, let's say 3 years, I've really begun to understand, number one, how to apologize quickly and often. And then number 2, when I'm right, you don't say I'm right. You just get it and move on.
Wow.
And know, because here's the deal. Like when you go to, you're like, oh, who's right? Ultimately, my wife is right more often than I am, because I'm a shoot first, ask questions later person, and she's a plan it out and then go do it person.
Oh, that's perfect.
So she helps to keep me from just going crazy. Like if it wasn't, I would probably work 70, 80 hours a week if it wasn't for her and my family keeping me from doing that, because I'm like, pick one thing. I don't really have any hobbies. My hobbies are hanging out with my family and going to watch my boys play baseball. Like that's what I do. And so but she helps to keep the family like scheduled and planned. She helps to keep us together. We've actually started to use this thing called the Big Ass Calendar by Jesse Itzler.
Okay.
Which is a giant calendar that we put on the wall. And at the beginning of the year, we write everything down on that calendar that we know of for the whole year. And we say, here's all the stuff that's happening. And then we set up review time. So like halfway through the year, at the beginning of July, all right, what does the rest of the year look like? What are we doing with that? And beginning to actually plan out our life, because what I was realizing was, as a family, everything revolved around my schedule. And so if it was last minute, I mean, there were times where when we lived in Denver and I was really growing the business, like if somebody called and there was a problem on show site, I'd be at home. I'd be like, babe, I got to go, and literally book a flight. I flew from Denver to Charlotte one night for a Krispy Kreme show because they were having an issue with one of my pieces of equipment. Grabbed a piece of equipment, loaded it onto the plane, took it to Charlotte to fix the show, and this was like,
Dang.
I got the call at 1 PM and I was on a plane at 3. I mean, it was that fast, because in our industry, there's not like, hey, we can deal with it tomorrow stuff. Like the show's tomorrow, you can't deal with that. And so, but she understands that. So that's the other side. She's also incredibly gracious to understand that when we have to go or we have to do something that's necessary, we do it. And that's what makes the magic happen. So she's been incredibly forceful around like time, being active about like driving forward about the things that are most important, but yet at the same time knowing how to pivot in those moments where it's like, okay, I realize like this is an interruption that we've got to allow to happen to make sure that we can actually keep progressing in the direction we want to go. There's a lot more to say about it, but that's how I can summarize it quickly, I guess.
No, and that's brilliant. It really is. It's the yin and yang. You guys are very disparate in the context of like, you're a free thinker. You're spontaneous, and when something needs to get done, you rush to get it done. And she outlines the plans. I mean, I'm honestly, I'm more aligned with you. Of course, I plan in litigation and stuff, but I'm very much go, 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 go. I'll think about it, and I'm right a lot of the time, but sometimes I'm not. Having someone like you have with your wife who can like, let's make a plan. It's like, what? Okay.
Well, you can be right and lord it over someone and then still be wrong.
I agree 100%. Now, let me ask you something. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got something very specific about apologies I want to ask you. How do you feel about the apology? And I got this so many times in power relationships. We're like, I'm sorry you feel that way. Well, what do you think of that particular apology? Where it's not, I'm sorry I did X, but rather, so I do something. Go.
That is not, I'm sorry you feel that way is not an apology.
100%, right? Okay.
That is a prideful statement of you saying you don't feel the right way because you're projecting on the other person. So there's a book by a guy named Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership. And I suck at, I make excuses all the time, but I work in my own life to take responsibility for every single thing that I do. Like,
Amen.
I am where I am because of my decisions. And if that's the case, there is nobody else dictating or responsible for my life other than me. And if I do something that brings a moment of contentiousness or what's the word I'm looking for, brings friction between my wife and I, my kids and I, or whatever, I have to be fast to apologize. Now, I am very much the apologize once person. You say it, you mean it, and you move on. I used to be the guy that felt that I had to apologize 10 times before I felt better about myself.
Me too, I'm that way.
You have to train yourself to learn that if you mean it when you say it, you don't have to say it any other time to appease your emotions. That's strictly your feeling and your emotions telling you that you somehow did something beyond one apology, which is not the case. And if people require more than one apology of you, I actually would say that person may not be someone you want to be around because they want to lord that over you. So if we look at our lives where Christ forgave us literally of everything, there is nothing in this world that we cannot forgive someone else for. And if we want to do anything that withholds honor, affection, or there's one other thing there, it withholds honor, affection, or love, I can't remember exactly what they are, then we have not actually forgiven someone of what they've done. And so when that person apologizes, it's one and done. It's like, hey, I am sorry I did that. That is my fault. Now, they may do it again. We're not perfect, and that happens. But Christ is also very specific when Peter says, how many times should we forgive them? And he says 70 times 7.
Yeah.
And so that really means unendless forgiveness, which is hard. And in this day and age, and a lot of times people are taught like, somebody, wrongs you once, okay, wrongs you twice, you're gone.
Yeah.
And now it all depends on who that is and what it is. If someone steals from you twice, well, I can forgive them, but that doesn't mean I'm going to allow them in my life to continue to do the same thing. But then that's on me. That's my decision for either allowing them or not allowing them in once they have if they've reestablished trust, and then, they're not going to do that anymore. So apology, absolutely, but not something that projects on other people saying, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an apology. That's not you being sorry at all. That's you just, I don't even know what to call it. It's just not an apology. How's that?
Yeah, so let me ask you a question along the lines, but a lot of times when a perfect example is when my relationship with my ex-fiance happened, and I'm feeling so much anger, and I'm breaking down in the shower, like breaking it to pieces. And my anger is feeding me, and I'm feeling justified. And then the thought of Jesus on the cross, looking at the people who were literally murdering him, going, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And I'm like, how did you do that? How did you not call down like a hit squad of angels and just wipe them off the face of the planet? And honestly, it did, thinking about it, calm me down and quell the anger. But like, do you ever in your life deal with the issue in the concept of forgiveness, where the anger overpowers the urge to forgive?
Oh, dude, I've carried anger for years, because I felt wronged by someone. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I can't believe they would do that. I mean, and then you badmouth somebody and you talk bad about them. And thankfully, those moments, the Lord has restored those relationships. In fact, just this last week, a former employee of mine who I was also a friend with, he left abruptly. And he left because he got a great job offer somewhere else, and he felt like it was what he needed to do. And he basically quit and left in the same day. I didn't get a 2 weeks notice and get anything.
Wow.
And I was angry. I was like, dude, like, what the frick, man? You leave me holding the bag here, and you didn't even properly train your people for when you were going to leave. You just up and left. And so for about 4 months, he and I never talked. Now, over the course of that 4 months, I had to, number one, reconcile with myself that I was okay with the fact that he left. And thankfully, the Lord had worked me through that the day before he quit, because I had this gut feeling. I was like, I know something's about to happen, but I didn't know what. And so I had already reconciled in my mind that I was okay if that happened. Whereas the last 2 years prior, while he worked with us, like, I don't know what I would have done. And then through that process, I finally had to say, you know what? Like, holding on to this doesn't help me, and it doesn't help him. And so I let it go. I was like, you know what, man? He did what he had to do. He made his decision, and it was something that I just forgave. And I just said, you know what? It's going to be what it's going to be. And then last week on Tuesday, he comes into the office to see one of my guys and visit. And I grabbed him by the shoulder. And I grabbed him by the shoulders. I said, man, listen, do you think I'm mad at you? And he kind of looked at me and nodded his head. And I was like, I am not mad at you. I am for you. I want you to win. I want you to do the best job you possibly can. I want to see you succeed. I am not mad at you. And I love you.
Oh, wow.
And you're my brother.
Wow.
And the moment that happened, something just, I could see he was very uncomfortable in that moment. And it broke. And I think it took him some time. He's a big guy. He's like 6'4", like he looks like a linebacker. He is a big dude. And he thought I was mad at him. He had left a message on my desk. Actually, he had left a message on my desk right here. It's too bright to see. Yeah. But it was like, it'd be nice if you returned my text, which I did return his text actually, and he never returned mine. I had asked him, I was like, dude, when he came in, I said, I did text you back. Why didn't you text me back? Are you mad at me? You think I'm mad at you? But the Lord used that to reconcile. And then this weekend he came out to watch my son play baseball.
Oh,
we got a chance to talk. And then, even just today, I gave him a call to talk to him about something that I couldn't talk to anybody else about because nobody else would understand. And the Lord has now restored that relationship. But I had to forgive before that opportunity was going to happen. I had to let go of the fact that I maybe felt wronged or whatever. Like, it wasn't a personal decision. He didn't do it he wasn't necessarily, he might have been mad at me, but it wasn't like a personal thing for him. He made that decision. And even if it was, honestly, even if it was personal, even if he was pissed off at me or I had done something to make him angry, my responsibility as a leader is to make it right and to make sure that I do not allow that to get under my skin and then allow unforgiveness to well up, because then I can't make decisions that will allow me to lead my company, my family, my business. Because when you live in a state of unforgiveness, you're in this state of anger and frustration constantly, repeatedly, all the time. And you don't know why. Nobody knows why, but there is a subliminal and unconscious thing going on in your head where you're just angry because you haven't let it go.
Yeah.
But I sleep like a baby because I know, like, number one, there's nobody I'm mad at. I've forgiven everybody, because ultimately for me, I'm number one, I'm not taking any of this with me. So when I die, none of it's going. So it's all temporary. I am strictly a steward of what I've been given. And God has put me as a steward of these things. And I believe he's going to give me more to steward as I grow and learn and create opportunity for others to then learn from my example to grow and steward. But if I hold on to anger and frustration, if I don't forgive, if I don't let go, I mean, the number of people that have wronged me and not paid me and gone behind my back and done stuff and stolen from me and taken clients from me and all of those things, that has all happened in the last 10 years, all of it. If I hung on to that, I can't grow. I can't take my company to the next level. So for me, it's the only way for me to open the door to push forward. And yeah, you know what? I might have a little chip on my shoulder. I might have a little bit of that, like, just watch me type thing.
Yeah.
But I have to forgive, because if you hang on to that unforgiveness, eventually it will eat you. It will eat you up, and you'll do something somewhere at some point in time that you will regret, because you were living in unforgiveness. You'll either make a decision out of like retribution or revenge or something, because you haven't allowed yourself to let go of that situation and say, you know what, whether a person of faith or not, it doesn't matter. The same response happens, because when you do something out of revenge or retribution, you're not thinking, you're acting, you're using that animalistic nature of, they attacked me, so I'm going to attack them. And that never goes well. I mean, look at history over time. All of the leaders and the people that have gone in with retribution or tried to get revenge or whatever, rarely does it actually lead to a result that is desirable for anybody. Everybody just gets hurt, and people get wounded, and people die, and people end up in a position where they no longer can do what they were supposed to do because they allowed unforgiveness to stop their purpose, and instead that became their purpose, that thing, whatever that was. And so, sorry, that was I don't even know. I could have kept going forever.
Dude,
on that,
you're vibing, bro. That's awesome, and I appreciate it. And it reminds me of this. My buddy Aaron was talking to me, and I tend to get over disasters really quickly because I honestly don't feel I have an option. But he's like, "How do you do it so quickly? How do you forget?" And I'm divorced. Like, I drank more than I should. The list goes on and on and on and on. But it's like, how do you move forward so quickly? Well, I'm like, I just imagine it like every experience in life is a rock in your hand. And you can either put it in a bag on your back and hold yourself back, or you can lay a path from yourself as you learn from it. So that's how I do it. And I need to work on the forgiveness thing. I'm not going to lie. I really need to work on that. But I do have a question about something you said, and you used the words leader and steward. And you've talked a lot about your faith impacting how you conduct your business. So how does your faith, you are a leader, you are a steward. So how does your faith specifically dictate how you function as a leader of your company and your family? And I understand you and your wife probably are co-leaders, but as your family and as everything, how does your faith impact that?
I mean, it for me, it impacts everything. Number one, it helps me understand that, first off, while I am forgiven and set free by Christ, I am still responsible for my own choices and my own life. He is not going to do anything. He's not going to physically do anything for me. He may move things in my favor. There are things that I believe that God does over time, that when, it becomes serendipitous because you're in the right place at the right time, because you were doing the things you needed to do to get there. People believe that luck happens. Luck is only being in the right place because you were being consistent. And that's where it comes from. And call it a miracle, call it a overnight success, call it whatever you want. In my business, if I am not being intentional every single day, I'm in the middle of a book right now. I just started reading it yesterday. I have a principle that is hard to keep sometimes, where when I get on a plane, before I do anything, I read 10 pages of a book. When I sit down, I respond to some emails, whatever, get some work stuff done or whatever while I'm on the ground. But, door closes, boom, I'm pulling out a book and I'm reading 10 pages. And so I started a book earlier this week called Unconventional Hospitality, or Uncommon Hospitality, something like that. And in the first 30 pages of the book, one of the things that he talks about is the intentionality of what you do around everything. And the fact that, Jesus was incredibly intentional about every single thing that he did. When the woman with the issue of blood touched the hem of his garment, he stopped. That was intentional. He could have kept going. He could have said, yeah, somebody touched me and I felt it and they got healed, and great, cool. That was a moment to be intentional and to bring intentionality into what he did. He went to the Garden of Gethsemane knowing that was the last time he was going to pray, when he wept and sweat blood. He then went, he was then, the soldiers came to take him to the priests, and he answered them honestly. He was intentional about that. He was intentional about his answers. He was intentional about his stories. He was intentional about each and every part of his life. And so in my business and in my life and in my family, something that I have to be much better at, I am the least of these. This is something I am still learning, but I have to be intentional in each and everything that I do. And that means that I have to, if I say, hey, you know what, I'm sending out 10 emails a day of outreach to my customers, that is an intentional thing that I have to be doing every single day. I cannot lax on that, or my business won't exist anymore. If I know that my guys are not delivering in a specific manner in the warehouse or through our communication, I have to be intentional about, it's not just going to fix itself. I have to be very intentional about how I'm going to address it and what I'm going to do. One of the things that I'm not good at and learning how to do is set expectations for my employees. I lived in a freelance world for a long time where I just expected everybody to do their job because that's what they were hired for. But employees are entirely different. Employees are employees because they're not freelancers. They may not know what to do. They may not know the right way to do it. They may not know the way you want to do it as your business. So you have to be intentional about training, teaching, instructing, giving them the information, the tools that they need to do their job, and then ultimately dealing with reality. Jesus dealt with the reality of the fact that he knew he was going to die from the moment he was on earth. And, I've never thought about it like this until right now, but when he was a baby and then growing up, he was still God in a man.
Amen.
Was his thought there that he knew, from the moment he was birthed and brought into this world, that he was going to go 33 years and then die? Did he think about that? When he left, when he got left at the temple and his parents were going home, and then they had to come back to Jerusalem to find him, and he told them, he said, I was in my father's house.
Yeah.
Did he know at that moment that he had to die? I would be willing to argue that he did.
I agree.
Because, and then he went to the garden. He told the disciples a number of different times that he was going to die. And then he went to the garden and he said, Lord, if this cup can be taken from me, please do it, but not my will, but your will be done. And so he was not only intentional, but he was dealing in reality. He was living in the reality of where things are. And I've struggled with that my entire life, is that when there's a situation in my business that I have got to live in reality. Our net profit last year was terrible. we did not make the kind of money that we needed to make as a business. We basically broke even. But that was because my QuickBooks wasn't set up properly to actually give me the information I needed. And I brought in a fractional CFO last year with bookkeeping to help me clean everything up. And I got to the end of the year and I had to deal with the reality of the fact that things weren't the way I thought they were. But in dealing with that reality now, I can make the changes I need to slowly help us fix that problem and fix that issue so that we can then be profitable to the way we want to be, so that then we can hire more people and buy more equipment and do more events and all of the things that we want to do. But that takes intentionality, and it takes dealing with reality and accepting reality the way it is, forgiving yourself for allowing you to get there. So I have to actually say, okay, I'm the one that led us to this because I didn't set expectations. I didn't deal with reality. I did not give people deadlines the way they needed them. I did not tell people how to do the things I wanted them to do and the way I wanted them to do it. I have to deal in the reality of the fact that I was not the leader I needed to be. So what do I need to be now to then get them to where they need to be? So I have to set expectations. So at the beginning of the year, I set sales expectations. I said, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's what we got to do. This is what I expect. I started meetings once a week, 10-minute huddle at the beginning of every week. Very simple, just a quick update. Here's what we're doing. Here's the things that are happening in the business. Here's what we're looking to do. This week we can work on these particular things. Or when you're in the warehouse, don't forget to keep things clean and keep the warehouse, shiny in the way we want it. And just 10 minutes. Sometimes it's something encouraging. Sometimes it's something I'm learning. Sometimes it's just information, but it's a way for me to get the whole company stops for 10 minutes. And I just talk to them. Here's what's going on. Hey, we're doing this event this week. We're reaching out to other people. We were in Nashville this week talking about how GigRent can help other companies with their rental equipment. So through that process, now I'm telling my employees, guys, we're out here doing the work to make sure that you have more to do, to make sure that you have more opportunity to work and more opportunity to learn, and so on and so forth. So, being intentional, dealing with reality, and then taking that reality and making intentional decisions to make it better. I still have to do a better job of setting expectations for my team. I am not a confrontation person, just never have been. I'm learning how to do that, but it's not as easy as just doing it. Some people come naturally to it. I don't. My mother was very unconfrontational. My dad was very non-confrontational. So in our family, we didn't really talk about anything. So I didn't learn how to walk into confrontation in a way where you could confront, deal with the issue, and then walk away as friends. Like it was always like sweep it under the rug, nothing's wrong, whatever, and then something would blow up and then we'd all have to apologize to each other. But then it was never a moment of, hey, let's sharpen each other. Let's get better. And true love actually is confronting someone when they need to change and they need to grow versus just be the way they are. And I'm trying to remember that, but I'm not the best at that by any means.
And you know what, you and I never thought about the thing that you just mentioned about Jesus knowing about his own death from the moment he was born. And it just popped into my head that, when he said, I think it was at the Last Supper, he's like, one of you will betray me. And, Peter was like, I won't do it. He's like, before the cock crows 3 times, you will deny me. Well, that was deny me. But he's sitting at dinner and he sees Judas and he's like, I would be like, that guy's gonna turn me in, right? Like, how he just speak up and be like, that guy is gonna turn me in. And so, I mean, that's even.
But did he select Judas as a disciple because he knew that was Judas's temperament? Wow.
I mean, the answer I would think would be yes, because none of the other disciples would have done it.
We don't know, but I think it also says something about the devil was like influencing him.
He tried to.
Something about, yeah. So I don't remember. I'd have to go back and read the specific passage. I don't remember, but it was something about the enemy like entered him or influenced him or something. I can't. But knowing, I mean, he knew everything. So ultimately, he probably did. Yeah. He's like, hey, dude, come follow me. But I know you're gonna send me to my death in 3 years.
That's insane. It's his ability to forgive, his ability to love Like, and I had and I'm gonna segue into a little bit of a different part now, but for the
Yeah.
longest time, I wasn't much of a churchgoer. I didn't, and the reason was I felt that because of the mistakes I've made, that God couldn't possibly love me. And I went to a religious retreat called Emmaus, which was mind altering. And I came to the realization that, one, nothing I can do will ever deserve God's love or Christ's love. Nothing. There is nothing I can do. Even if I were crucified myself, it wouldn't match it. But I can never lose it. And that completely flipped the script on me. And that's when I was in a very dark moment, like everything, professionally, spiritually, everything. So the reason why I bring this up is, and I use this silly quote from Rocky, where it's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and get back and keep going forward. So in your professional, personal career, has there been, and you might have touched on it a little bit already, a point in your life where you got hit so hard that you weren't sure you got back up, but you did? And if so, tell me about it.
I mean, COVID was that times 10. We're a live event company. I mean, we depend entirely on doing events live. And March 10th, 2020, I mean, everything shut down. And I had no idea what I was like. I had no idea what we were going to do. We had money in the bank, but we owed people more money than I had in the bank because we owed people money based on events that were going to be coming that then all canceled, like one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other for the next like 3, 4, 5, 6 months during that time frame. And so I was on the phone. I had actually just met my coach, Mike Mell, who is still my personal and business coach that we talk almost every week. And he and I had just started like 3 months before. And so we started working through and making a plan each week. What are we doing this week? What are we going to do this week? What kind of outreach? What kind of conversations? What do we need to be looking at doing as a company to make sure that we can survive this, and then not only survive, but actually emerge stronger and be a better company when it's over, not knowing when it was going to be over. And so I was scared out of my mind for 6 months. I had no idea what we were going to do. I just literally was like, God, I don't know. Like I had to throw my hands up and be like, Lord, I don't know what to do. Everything we did was based around people getting together and meeting face to face. And we went for 6 months where in the state of Colorado, we went for a year where they were like, you can't meet. You cannot be in a group greater than X amount, which, meant doing events was null and void.
Yeah.
And actually, in honesty, that's part of why we left Colorado, was because I was sick and tired of being told that as a business owner and a father and a family man, that I was, non-essential. And to me, I'm the most essential person in my life for my family because I'm the one that's putting food on the table.
Yeah.
I'm the one that's making sure that they can eat and have a roof over their head and all that stuff. So to look at me and say I'm non-essential because I don't work in a grocery store, or I'm not a first responder, or I'm not working in a hospital, no disrespect to any of those people by any means.
Of course.
But to me, I am the most important person with regards to physically on this earth, other than the Lord, who I know will provide, because he provides through me. So I'm essential for my family to make sure that they can live. And so that was part of why I wanted to get out of Colorado when we moved down here 4 years ago, was because I was sick and tired of being told I was non-essential. I'm like, I am absolutely essential. And, Ron DeSantis down here had done some sort of speech or something in early 2021 where he's like, everybody that works and does a job in Florida is essential. And, and that is who we're going to be and what we are. And so Florida's open, like we're just doing our thing. And so, we made the decision to move. Now, I had decided to move before I heard that speech, because there was like a point in February of 2021 where just the Lord did this 48-hour thing where I went from, no, we're not moving, we're staying right where we are, to just boom, all right, let's go. And there was something inside of me that said, it's time, and it's time to move. And, in the end, it was the best thing that could have ever happened for my family. There have been so many lives that I had this discussion with my youngest son, Ethan, who's 11, who misses Colorado tremendously. He is not a Florida boy, honestly. He loves baseball, but that's about the only Florida thing he likes. He's a hot body, needs the cold. He loves Colorado, skiing, biking, all of that stuff. And he to this day still struggles with, why did we move? Why did we come down here? And my wife and I sat with him for almost an hour, and we had to go through. He's like, Ethan, I know it doesn't make sense, but your mother and I believe we made the right choice. And when you look at what God has done since we've been here, the lives that we've seen impacted, the people that have come on staff, the fathers who have become better fathers and have taken better care of their kids and been able to do the things that they were never able to do or had much more difficult time doing before they came to work for us, or the church we're supporting that needs this support, small. We're a member of a church of 25 people, 30 people, so we are a part of that church. We are supporting that church and allowing that church to continue to operate on a regular basis as they're slowly growing. When you look at all of the things that God did, not that he couldn't have done something similar in Colorado, and we don't know what would have or wouldn't have happened had we not moved. Honestly, God probably would have we would have gotten kicked out. It would have been no, it would have been like a Jonah situation to be you're going to get eaten up by the fish or something for all life. But that was what was necessary for us. And he slowly began to understand, as my wife and I talked to him about, look at the things that have happened that would have never happened if we hadn't moved, if we hadn't done and followed the call of what we believe the Lord had for us. And so through all of that, is it hard? Yes. Do we miss Colorado? Absolutely. Do we sometimes wish that we could go back or live there? I have moments that I do as well. However, when I look at the fruit, when I look at the end, the train of things that have happened since we've been here, I cannot deny the fact that God brought us here for a reason. We have a baby girl that's been born since we were here. She's 2.5 years old. She would not exist if we hadn't come to Florida.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, but think about that.
Yeah.
A person being born is influenced by every factor that is around. I mean, I don't want to get gross here, but there's a lot of sperm. And when that happens, which one got there first? Yeah. If the other one with the more dominant Y chromosome, or how, it's going to it could have been a boy instead of a girl. It could have been 30 seconds later, 2 seconds later, it could be a completely different person than who it
100%.
is. Gary Vee talks about the fact that the you being you is a 15 trillion to 1 chance of you being you. If your mom had had one extra sip of wine, or your dad had, sat on the toilet for an extra 10 seconds, or whatever the case may be, think about real life. When you look at real life and you look at all of that, the chance that you are you, the chance that my daughter Addison is my daughter Addison, the way she is right now, the way that God made her, is literally a 1 in 15 trillion chance, snap of a finger. So understand that we are that unique. We are that special. So all of the things that have happened in our lives have all been because of the choices we made to follow the Lord and do those things that we believe were right.
Amen. And you've spoken about many beautiful things that happened after that 6-month fear, but professionally, what was you're making zero. The world is shut down. So professionally, what changed that had you come, I don't know if you know who Tyson Fury is, a heavyweight boxer.
I don't.
This one boxer knocked him down and he was out. And with 8 seconds left, he stands back up. Everyone thought he was done. So what was your stand back up moment? What changed that 6 months of fear to promise and realization? Did you, now was GigStream a company of yours?
GigStream is, we worked very hard to get that moving, but there were so many other companies that popped up that actually had a significant amount of funding that we just didn't have. And so we did hundreds of demos for GigStream and so on, and it just didn't take the traction. I mean, ultimately, it was just consistency. There was no magic bullet. There was no like moment of stand up. It was literally just discipline, consistency, day in and day out. We took on every single project we could take our hands on. We sold LED. We did installs. We did outdoor events. We did filming. We did what else? We did everything, literally everything that, like, if somebody came and said, "Hey, can you do this for us?" We're like, "Yes." We did, we did a Christian event in a hotel in Denver, Colorado. We did different film stuff. We did stuff down here in Orlando. We did, like literally everything. I don't care what it was. We just said yes, and we just remained consistent and disciplined, and we slowly got our way out of it. We stayed disciplined with the money we spent. We stayed disciplined with how we acted, with how we did stuff. Day in and day out. There was no like big stand-up moment or anything. It was literally just one foot in front of the other every single day. I mean, that's how businesses are built. That's how life is built. That's how, if you want to succeed at anything, you have to decide now that 5 years from now, you're still going to be doing what you're doing, because that's the only way it's actually going to succeed. The overnight success people are never overnight successes.
Correct.
They were doing stuff for years before anything ever happened.
Yeah.
So that's the decision. That's where we're working towards. That's the consistency. That's where I've got 10-year plans. I know where I'm going in 10 years, and it's going to be incredible, and we're going to do awesome stuff. And you know what? It may not work out. It may not be exactly what I see right now, but it's going to be something awesome. And if I even get half of what I envision in 10 years, it's going to be incredible. So,
well, God willing, it does come true. And now that I see your story and to get back up, it isn't to pop right back up and be ready to go. It's to 1, and you're down on like one knee, and then 2, and you slowly start raising yourself back up. With 10, here I am, man. Here I am.
Yep.
You powered through, brother, and thank you for that. And I tend to, and honestly, I could talk to you forever, man. And one of the things I really want to do, I do want to talk about what makes people successful. I want people to give advice to my listeners, but there was this attorney who I interviewed previously, and I asked her what her legacy was, and she said, I want to spread the word of Christ. So what I want to motivate people personally in conduct, but I also want to use this platform to spread the word of Christ. And if one person even asks a question about it, it's so worthwhile. So my question for you is on the aspect of legacy. That's what this show, part of this show is about, is what is the legacy that we want to leave behind? So for you, Mr. Goodfellow, which I feel like is a name of someone like some British drama from way back when. For you, Jordan, man, what do you want your legacy to be when you pass this earth and God willing you meet St. Peter and he's like, oh, by the way, Jordan, look what you did. Like what do you want him to be telling you? What do you want your legacy to be?
That's a very complicated. There's a lot there. Number one, I want to build something that leaves things for my great grandchildren. And I want to actually, I mentioned 120 years old. I want to play. I want to be healthy enough to play with my great grandchildren. Not my great grandchildren, my great grandchildren. That is what I want to do that. And so I am working day in. I work out 6 hours, 6 days a week. I don't work out for forever. I don't crush my body forever, but I stay consistent. The other thing that I want to do and that I believe firmly in is that I believe that specifically the United States, but by and large the world, is in the position that it is in right now because there are not enough men that stand up to do what men should do, which is lead and bring accountability.
Amen.
And if I were to pick one thing that would be my legacy, would first and foremost be my 2 boys. I have the biggest responsibility are the 2 boys that are my responsibility right now, to raise them up, that they would be an influence to lead other men and then also women and children to faith and then also through being men that take responsibility and take accountability. And the long-term legacy for me is working with men that need to learn how to be men. We have not lost, that's incorrect. We have allowed it to fall into the I guess into the background is the way to say it. We have over the last 80 years, I go all the way back to World War II. When you look at, through all the wars and everything that has happened, many of the men went and fought those wars. And so everything started to be patterned around women's needs, women's desires, women's vision, because they were here. It's nothing against them. I'm not criticizing them. They do excellent work. But men lost the ability to learn how to be men, partially because we lost so many men during that time frame. We lost so many fathers. We lost so many sons, husbands. We lost so many during that time frame that there was a decrease in that. And then over the years, through all the different phases of the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, as the divorce rate has risen, as the children out of wedlock has risen, as the homeless population has risen, all of these things that have gone on are, I believe, a direct result of there not being enough men that know how to be men first and foremost. Amen. And to stand up and to do what they know they need to do to take care of their families, to sacrifice, to do the work that needs to be done, an honest day's work, even if it's not for $100,000 a year. Like sometimes that just may not be possible, but it's there. Be content with having a little bit, not with not having everything. We are in a position where people think that somehow they come out of school or college and they should be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
No.
Because people show them these videos of rented planes and rented cars that they're saying are theirs, and they're taking photos of stuff and doing all these things, saying I'm 22 and I'm doing this and I'm that and I'm blah 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 blah. When man, you're such a kid and you're a liar. And so, I see the stories on a regular basis with this stuff happening, but men learning to be men, learning to stand up for the people around them, learning to raise and protect the women and the children around them, and stand up when people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And it's not easy. It's not easy. I will not pretend that it's easy. It's not easy to confront someone in a position when they're doing something they should not be doing. But that is something that men should be watching out for. Like if you see, here's an example. So about a year and a half ago, we were at baseball practice for my son, and there was another kid that was being mistreated by his father in some way, like drugged through the parking lot, something like that. And I didn't see it. My wife saw it and came and told me about it. And I was like, man, I wish that I had been in the parking lot to address this person who thought they were a man, but in no way were treating their 9-year-old kid who was struggling to learn how to play baseball, like berating them and calling them names and all the other stuff that they were doing. Like, that's not how you treat a 9-year-old that's learning how to play baseball. And so, like, that's not a man, that's a child. I have many other words for that. But in reality, learning how to be men, stand on your own 2 feet, get out of your parents' house when you're 18 years old, even if you have to live in another house with 18 other guys that are, living on beans and rice and ramen for 4 years, and you're driving a crap car from 1962. That's too old. From 1997, and you're working mowing lawns or working at Subway, or whatever that is, standing on your own 2 feet and not relying on the handout of other people and other things, but learning how to take responsibility, how to take action for what you're doing. Like, I left the house when I was 18, and I have never, I was back in the house when I first finished this 2 years of internship, I was back in the house for 3 months, and I worked for a guy doing construction. And then I would, like, as soon as I could get out of the house, I was out. I was 21 years old, I think. So I was still really at like college age, if you will. And so, but I was out, and I've never been back ever once. I lived in an apartment with 4 other guys. I was sleeping on a mattress I bought from the Goodwill for $50 for like 5 years before. And then I actually slept on that mattress until I got married. But
cool.
I didn't have a bed. I didn't have a bed frame. I didn't have, like, it was literally box spring mattress on the floor, make the bed. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the sheets would get a little crusty after a while. Cause I wash those things once every 6 months.
Well, you're a guy.
But
so yeah.
I know. But then, okay, that actually shows, like, that's something else that men should be able to do, is take care of their things. And that's actually something that my wife has really helped me learn over the last while, is like, if you want something to last, you have to take care of it, and you have to be responsible with it. But that is really the legacy that I want to leave, is helping men become men, to grow up and be men, and train and learn how to protect women and children, take care of the widows, look out for the people that are around them, and make sure that people are not being taken advantage of, but instead stand up and hold people accountable, and hold people to the standard that they, either, whether they say or not they want to be that standard, that's what they should be, because that's what we are called to do as men.
Absolutely. And you said something, and I don't even know if you realize how profound it was. You said something, if you want something to last, you have to take care of it and be responsible for it. And that is so profound, because it not only applies to the crusty bed sheets, it applies to your business. It applies to your relationships. It applies to everything in your life. If you value something, and God, that's a gem, man. If you value something, if you want it to last a long time, you have to take care of it, and you have to be responsible for it. And that's such a great way for us to wrap this up with that idea. And it so sort of ties everything in together. Like, God is great, man, because he must have put that thought in your head to be able to do this. Jordan,
Yep.
I appreciate you so much, man. I am grateful that a man of faith is out there. I am grateful that a man is out there who wants men to be men. Now, that doesn't mean power. Power is the exertion of force. That means strength. That means having internal strength to do the right thing. So thank you so much, brother. It's been a blessing, and may God grant you all the benefits of your endeavors, and bless your family as well.
Well, thank you, Gavin. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. It's gone on. Like, it went on. I was like, oh crap! Wow, I can't believe it went on this long. But I now have a lot more to hold myself accountable to, because I'm talking about all the things I'm working on.
Yeah.
So now, as it gets out into the public and people are like, so Jordan, how you doing? Like, what?
Yeah,
so
man.
it's good for me too, though, because it brings accountability. Like, we need that accountability to be able to look at each other and say, hey, dude, not towing the line. Come on, I know you can do it. And it's not from a standpoint of degradation.
No.
It's not from a standpoint of tearing someone down. It's saying, I see what you can be. I tell my boys all the time, I'm like, listen, you control your body, you control your mind, you control your actions. You are capable of doing what you need to do. You just have to choose it. You just have to choose it. Like, I am looking at the things that I want to accomplish over the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I have to keep my vision in front of me. I have to know what I want. So you have to pick what you want first. Pick what you want to do. Most people are ambling through life just hopeless, endless. Pick something. I don't care what it is. You want to have a 75, you want to have a golf score of 75. If that's what you want to do, then everything you do should be leading you in the direction of getting to that point. If that's your North Star, if that's where you want to go. But pick something. You know what? I want to raise a child that graduates from high school. Okay, if that's what you want to do, then everything that you do needs to be focused and positioned on that. Not everybody's going to own a business. Not everybody's going to be a famous rock star. Not everybody's going to be successful. Maybe it's, I want to help the company that I work for grow to X amount of dollars. All right, so what are you going to do to allow that to become your passion and drive things forward, so that your boss knows that you're committed, so that you know that you're committed? Like, pick something. It doesn't matter what it is, but pick it. And then once you pick it, know and be okay with other people holding you accountable when you stray away, because you will. You'll move to the left, you'll move to the right, but be willing to say, yes, okay, thank you for the reminder. Thank you for the reminder. I tell my wife, all right, you're right. Thank you. You're right. Thank you. You're right. Thank you. Whenever I'm like, oh, over here, squirrel. Oh, over here, squirrel. Like, yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Because we need that. We have to be constantly redirected. Jesus was constantly redirecting the disciples back towards him and back towards God all the time. He's like, no, it's not over there. No, it's not over there. No, it's not over. It's we're human. So find those things, put it in front of you. And yeah, there's a lot. There's so much more that we can do to go into that.
We could talk for hours, man, because you touch on so many good topics. And again, you almost supernaturally touch on be intentional. Be intentional. Right. So Jordan, thank you very much, man. It's been great talking to you. And I can't wait till this goes out and people hear your message, brother. All right?
Awesome. Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Take care.
God bless.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Florida Forge podcast. If today's conversation inspired you, share it with someone building their own legacy here in the great Sunshine State. Until next time, keep forging what's next for Florida, and we'll see you soon.